We knew this was gonna happen.
The LAG camp is a one-story home, you know.
Welcome to Reverse Sweeps Power Rankings presented by USAA Insurance. Pacman Enable. Before we get into these power rankings, I just want to know, how difficult was it for you guys to build them?
Not at all.
It was easy.
Yeah.
I let John handle it. We're at the point in every Call of Duty year where there's not going to be much movement, okay? Because now all the teams are starting to really hit their ceiling, essentially. And you see that in the matches. It's going to be a lot easier to predict who's going to come out on top. Not even from the best teams, but even like middle of the pack and the worst teams, you can still kind of have a good idea. And it's like, it's clear as day. I think that's the quote, right, John? It's clear as day.
Clear as day. The line is drawn in the sand. We know where
there
you
you
sit.
go. Line is drawn in the damn sand.
It was easy as could be. In the middle of the season, it was like, I don't know, man. Like, this team, not now. We know. We know. And so do you guys at home.
They know, you know. We'll see, you guys. And let's see. I'm curious. In the comments, before we get to the power ranking, I'd love to know if your prediction for what it is matches closely with Pacman and Enable. And let's take a look at some of those results, right? So how'd we get where we are? Well, the results of the first week are in. FaZe, one of those top teams, getting a nice 3-1 over Paris, a 3-0 over OpTic. Toronto went 1-1. They did fall to Florida, but they had a very strong series against Dallas. Teams like Paris continued to struggle. Teams like Minnesota went 1-1. Thieves coming out on top over Seattle. So some of these results fairly similar to what you might have anticipated. And that brings us to our standings. Now that the first week is done in stage 4, where do these teams sit in their groups? Well, FaZe, Florida on top. I think Florida may be the one there that's a bit surprising. Right underneath them, you have Thieves in Group A in second, Subliners in second in Group B, and maybe less of a surprise, folks like Seattle Surge, Paris, and Gorillas in London sitting at the bottom of their respective groups. So that brings us to Enable and Pacman's power rankings. Let's pull them up so you guys can take a look. And well, gentlemen, there hasn't been a whole lot of movement. There's only 2 teams, and we'll get to them. There's only 2 teams toward the top that have had movement. So let's start off, as we always do, with Paris and Seattle. I'll let you guys take it from there.
Blow it up and trade for picks. Let's move on.
How many times have you said that now?
I mean, I don't know if I can speak for John. I want both of those teams to be so much better than they are. More specifically, Seattle.
Oh, yeah, obviously.
You know, but there's some teams where I'm okay with them being bad, you know. But with all the banner, like, I love Sam. I love the guys on Seattle. But they just, and they give you a sliver of hope every time. And then they just literally fail. And I don't know why. They don't look good. You know, they get better in one area. They completely just lose all credibility in another mode. So they're just not good. They're not a good team.
Not at all. I just checked this, by the way. I did not know that Seattle is officially, they've been in our last place in our power rankings for a while, but I really don't check the overall CDL standings that much. They just flip-flop all the time. But Seattle's in last place again. I believe it's their second year in a row, sitting at the very, very bottom of the CDL standings. And it's just they're just having a tough go of it. That's 2 straight years of handing out 10 points at a time. It's tough, man. Like, there's nothing good to say. There's just nothing good to say about them at all. They've tried different rosters, tried different players, drop Looney, Decimate leaves the team. Like, it just
Seattle management gotta be pissed.
Seattle management's gotta be furious. Like, yeah.
They're like, damn, back to back years, like, we just can't catch a break. And it's not like last year. You won't even be at champs. You know, you won't even be there.
They won't make it. There's like nothing they can do.
Yeah, I think it's at this point essentially statistically impossible.
We're not the stat guys, but I'll be willing to bet that it's damn near.
Yeah, I can't do math, but I would bet that that's not gonna happen. So Paris and Seattle relegated to the bottom once again. Gorillas, you still have them in 10th, but I would ask, when you get into something like a Rocker and a Gorillas, do you have more hope for them to maybe make something happen over a Paris and Seattle, or still no?
Well, yeah, they have more potential than Paris and Seattle, but at the same time, I don't really believe in them either. It just LAG. We talked about them so much during stage 2 and stage 3. Like, we knew this was going to happen. We knew they were going to fall out of the top 8. They were in the top 8 for the longest in the actual standings. They were there, but we knew this was going to happen. Ian always said it. Their top end potential just isn't there compared to the other teams. It's just not. They picked up Sheen and their teamwork looked a little better, but they just continuously lose close matches over and over and over, to the point now where now the gap between them and I believe Florida is getting bigger, and Florida is trending up. Like, we knew this was going to happen. We knew, and it just, I'm tired of saying it. They should have made moves. They didn't. Good luck.
I mean, that's simple. They're just like, the LAG camp is a one-story home, you know, low ceiling compared to the other teams. You know, FaZe got a goddamn penthouse up in the city, like 18th floor. You know, LAG just, they're a little bit better. They're more consistent than like the Seattle and the Paris, but I'm not confident in them doing anything. I'm just not. I think Minnesota, you could maybe go the other way, but I don't think the Major Maniac for accuracy was a positive move. I think it was lateral, if anything. I think so far that's been proven. There's not much to talk about. Like, none of these teams, I don't think any of these teams besides Minnesota is in the top 8, right?
Yes, they're in 7th place, right ahead of Florida.
None of these teams, the Paris, the Seattle, LAG, none of them have a shot, I don't think, at making top 8 and competing at champs. They just don't.
So you relegate then Rocker Pacman down to 9th. Why do you think that spark died? They bring in Standy. Obviously, they took out some big teams. Why do you think that died?
I mean, it's really hard to say, but even throughout that whole time, they were clutching up these super, super close matches, and that just ran out of steam. They never actually got really good at hardpoint. It's just too hard in this league with all this talent to stay consistent if you can't pull out half of them. You gotta be competitive in the mode, and they just never really figured it out. Maybe with Maniac that'll turn around, but I really don't see how that one player is gonna make a difference in that. But maybe I'm wrong. But, maybe time will tell, and they will turn it around. I just don't know. It seemed like they died overnight too. They went from somewhere like near the top of our power rankings, right? Like 3rd, 4th place at some point to just consistently falling off. Like, you can blame accuracy. Actually knew he didn't have the best stage, but it wasn't a one-player thing. The just team fell flat.
They lost their mojo.
They definitely did. They lost it earlier in the season too. Picked up Standy and got it back, and then it just happened again. And we'll see. But it's unfortunate because they were a team that I was really starting to love to watch. Like, they were super fun matches. They're beating top teams, and then it just, I don't know. It's over with for that.
So then we have London, though. London's sitting at 8th. They're not making top 8 for champs, but you do have them at 8th in your power rankings. So any potential there for you guys to think maybe they can make some move, make a run at a major, get enough points to shuffle up the top 8 for the champs?
Honestly, no. But I'm going to say that London's been through a lot this season, right? Like, that's why they're so far down in the overall points. But they're like, Afro, he's pretty good. Alex is a solid player. The team is actually, really competitive. They're a solid team. They're a really solid team. They're not good enough to actually make these deep runs that you're going to need to make up the amount of points. They're just not, but they can still beat some. I really have confidence in them beating all these lower teams, and they can actually put up a fight versus the other competition. They're a solid team, and I feel like London actually deserves some props for what they've been through this season to get to this point to actually put up a team that's competitive. So I got to give them that. It's just 70 points behind a team that is looking really good. You know what I mean? Florida is the team in 8th place. That's the team you need to pass, and they just beat Toronto. It's a tough.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point.
Yeah, it's just tough.
I think if this was the roster all year, this London team could have kind of squeezed into that top 8. But like John said, they had such a bad start. It gets hard to really kind of mount a comeback. in the standings, especially when the one team that you can possibly pass is the team that's playing their best Call of Duty right now. So it'll be hard. But like John said, I could see them, like really competing and actually taking series off of these top teams and beating all the lower teams. But you can't really give them any more than that because of how poor they've been, I guess. For
didn't they go through the first stage and not even win a match? They went through the entire beginning with.
That's about as bad of a start as you can ask for.
Yeah, it puts you kind of in a hole.
And unfortunately, maybe a little too late for them to start digging their way out of it. A reminder, though, Reverse Sweep is presented by USAA Insurance. They make it super easy to insure all of your stuff, like your rigs and gear, and they have your back. Eligibility restrictions apply. Insurance provided by the United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas. Let's move on to Dallas. It feels weird to be talking about Dallas so soon in a power ranking, but we have them at 7th. They didn't move. Again, guys, brought in Vivid after Fellow after Hook, and they still look kind of So you guys keep them at 7th. Do you have hope for them maybe to move up, or do you think they're going to continue to stay here?
I do have hope. I think it's weird, Katie, because if you look at the overall standings and the points, they're obviously high up because of how much success they had early on. When they had Fellow in the lineup, we talked about, I specifically talked about, I think maybe they just didn't have enough talent and they had to make some roster moves. They're a team that we've seen how good that they can be, but they're playing way worse than anyone predicted. You know, if you would ask me at the beginning of the year, would I ever have Dallas this low? I would have said no. But I definitely think
we all would have,
Yeah, I mean, anybody in their right mind would have said no shot they would have been this low. They don't look good with Vivid, but we do have to give them a little more time. He needs to get in game shape, right, to really see their potential, because he had a lot of impact on that LAG team. I thought he was a star on their team. So if he can get back to that performance, I think we can see them move up. But for right now, I think they're kind of like cemented in this spot.
Yeah, I feel like the team right now, at this very moment, didn't look any different with Vivid than they did with Fellow. If they were to go in the same matches, they'd win the same matches, they'd lose the same matches. That's how I feel. But I do think that a team is different when they know, like, this is going to be my team, right? This is it. So I feel like teams practice differently. They go over things differently. They argue differently. They do everything differently because they're trying to become as good as possible, because they know this is it. There's no time for other changes, right? This is the team that they're gonna eventually try to win champs with. So I do feel like in a couple weeks from now we'll have a more accurate assessment of what this Dallas team really is gonna be, because right now it does feel, like Ian said, like they're cemented in that spot because it didn't feel any different. But they might not have had the time for it to feel that way. Do I really believe that? No. I feel like this is what we're gonna get, but I do feel like it can happen, and I'm not really one to doubt Crim's teams. So I'm just gonna let a couple weeks pass before I give what my final thoughts will be about this Dallas team. But right now, this is just where they sit.
And Thieves sitting right above them in 6th place in our top 6 of these power rankings. Enable, LA Thieves, your team. What do you look at when you see this squad going forward?
I mean, I still think they have a lot of potential. I think them making that move for Hugh, it might have been a little premature. But at the same time, I get it and it makes sense. The thing that sucks is they were in such a good spot with TJ in the starting lineup, and having him bench, for even only a couple weeks, other teams improved. You saw OpTic in now Florida. So they lost some very valuable time and practice. And so they look a little shaky. I still think they are amongst, the top half of the league. That's why we have them here, but they fell behind a little bit. Once again, Teach has to get in game shape, and I don't want to use that excuse, because we are at the point now where, like, you're not going to learn much more from now till the end of the game. It's all about execution, right? And discipline, and just like consistently doing what you need to do. But with Empire and LAT, with having Vivid and TJ, those players are huge for those teams. And if they're not really performing at their best just because they're a little rusty, you got to give it a little time. So I think it's the same for LAT as it was for Dallas.
Yeah, I agree with that. It's just give them a little time and see if they can get back to that previous form. I will say that I do believe that it was extremely lucky that they got to play Seattle first, because had they played like that versus literally anyone else, they would have lost. They did not play that well, but they pulled out a win. Yep, thank you, Seattle. But I mean, it is what it is. You play who's put in front of you. You play who they put in front of you, and they got the dub, and now they have that whole extra week to knock the rust off, right, and come out and play. So similar to what Ian said, let's just give them that time to get back to form and see if they can really make us believers like they did before they actually made the move. Like they turned us all from skeptics, they hadn't beat anyone good, blah blah blah, to actually believing, okay, this team could make a run, and maybe they'll get back to that. I really do have faith in them doing that.
So I'm very excited about our 4-5, because these are the only two teams that moved in our power rankings. Florida went up 1 to 4th, and OpTic went down 1 to 5th. And I'm so thrilled that there's movement here. So maybe not so thrilled if you're an OpTic fan, but they dropped down to 5th. So let's start with that, Pacman. The movement. What made you guys decide to do this, to bump OpTic down, bump Florida up?
I mean, Florida won 2 of their matches and OpTic lost, and they lost bad again to Atlanta FaZe, and Florida managed to beat Toronto, who's a top team in this league. So when you do that, we have to give you your props no matter what the situation. I know they played them on standoff. It was a brand new map, blah, 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 but they still clutched up, and they won the match. And they put themselves in a position to even have a super close series, unlike OpTic, where they just got blown out, right? So we're not moving OpTic down far. It's not like, I mean, we saw them 3-0 Minnesota as well. It's just when you get beat down like that, sometimes, you know, it's got to shift a little bit. And Florida did their thing and stands on top of their group. I think it's nothing major. Just Florida is playing extremely good Call of Duty.
I think the biggest thing for me is I would say OpTic has a higher floor than Florida, but right now Florida has a higher ceiling. You know, like, I would be more confident right now in OpTic versus these lower tier teams. Like, oh yeah, they're gonna win this match. Florida still a little up in the air, even though they look great. They are currently 2-0. We've seen it in the past where you're like, how do they beat this team, which you know, they could be considered a good team, and then lose to the absolute worst team in the league. But they have a win versus Toronto in this group. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they take a series off FaZe, take a series off NYSL. Whereas OpTic right now, they just don't seem like they have enough in the tank to do so. It's so weird saying that OpTic is like that they don't have that potential, because I think they do, but they just can't seem to get it.
It's the teamwork. It's just not fully there.
You're right. You know I didn't want to put them down. I don't want to get roasted. So if you want to take,
it's not roasting them, because they look, like you said. I agree with your take right there when you said I actually believe in OpTic versus the teams below them more than Florida. I do too, because Florida's super inconsistent, and OpTic just has more individual talent. Like, I saw Envoy just start running circles around Minnesota. They have that potential. They have more of that potential just to dominate the teams below them. But when they play the teams that are either equal in gun skill or have more teamwork, that's when they get more exposed than some of these other teams. Just like, why get on the same page? Like, why is it so hard for you guys to consistently be on the same page? And that's OpTic's biggest issue.
I will say these two teams are very close. Oh, sorry, Katie. But,
No. I would agree with you that they do seem, and yeah, I mean, about as close as they can be when you talk about movements. Moving one place up or down is the smallest possible movement you can have in power rankings. So yeah, I think that's testament to your point, right? That there's not a ton of difference here, but also, yeah, I mean, in terms of someone like OpTic, I agree. It seems like we know what they can do. It just seems inaccessible to them to be able to get to that point for whatever reason, teamwork or otherwise. I don't know. So subliners, you still have them in 3rd. They won their series. They only played once this week. They won their series, and Toronto went 1-1. So why keep subliners 3rd? Maybe no movement there.
This is the only one where you could possibly make an argument to move subliners up, but it's not like they did anything crazy. And I watched FaZe get blown out by, I want to say, Paris on the standoff S&D, and then I saw Toronto do the same thing against Florida. And in my mind, I'm like, these maps don't actually matter. They don't matter. These teams are trying to figure out a new map pool. Like they have to try to work it out, and
Right.
the first playthrough to it, it just doesn't matter. It's just you're not you're getting blown out because your team has no familiarity with the map. So it's hard for me to take those losses and really take them serious at this stage. Like more time needs to pass. They need to get more reps under their belt, and then I'll start looking at it like, okay, that actually matters. Because as soon as those maps pass, then we see the team that we're used to seeing. So they're donating a map away in a series, and against another top team, it could cause you to lose. That's what happened with Toronto. FaZe happened to be playing Paris, so it didn't matter. It's just that's why I didn't move them. And Toronto's been so consistently good for the last, I don't know how long this has even been, 2 months, that it's hard for me to knock them down for a series like that. It just is, because I just have so much confidence in them going forward. But I mean, you can make an argument for New York being second, and I'd be like, sure, that's fine too.
both of them are very close. I think it's a combination of what John said, you know, with the standoff and it being it was their first match after kind of having a little bit of a break. And no matter how good you are, you're not going to win every series. You know, it happens. And if you look at New York, they played a clear-cut bottom of the barrel team in LAG, whereas Toronto lost to Florida, who Florida is trending up at a very, very fast rate right now. So who knows? Like, we need to see NYSL go up against Florida, but it's just one series. You know, I think with these three teams, they're clear-cut top three. And for them to really have any movement, it would take either one of them to completely bomb in the groups. But I don't think that's going to happen. Like, they're going to all make winners bracket, and then so it's going to come to the major to really see some movement with those teams.
Okay, so then a question for you guys. So FaZe, Toronto, Subliners, I think we're all in agreement. Like, as you said, it would really take something substantial happening to want to shift any of them in any sort of way. FaZe, though, you have them at number one. They've been number one all year, except for the brief time that Toronto took that over. What would need to happen in, say, the major, in your guys' eyes, to warrant FaZe dropping anywhere below, say, second?
It would have to be specifically losing to both of those teams in the major, and those teams being in the finals, right? Like, that's the only way, because even if they were to lose the final, I would still have them top two, regardless of who they lost to or what the score of the series. They would have to. They'd have to get beat by both of those teams, in my opinion, at the major.
I don't even know if I would move them below. Like
then, you know what I mean? It's tough.
I guess it depends on where. Like, if they lost to both teams and how the placings would work. But FaZe would have to bomb. FaZe would have to absolutely bomb. I mean,
have to be catastrophic.
That's true, because if they got third and lost to both those teams, I'd
probably still have them first. FaZe is like the most safe top two I think I've ever seen in Call of Duty history. Like it's been a while since you could just basically go into the major and be like, oh yeah, FaZe will be in the finals. Like it doesn't. It doesn't matter. Like, they're just there.
When was the last team that comes to mind in that kind of same security? Like, yeah, they're going to be in the final.
Literally for me, it's Complexity.
It's not OpTic AW.
OpTic AW is a good one, but I feel like they lost a lot more.
That's fair.
I mean, but that also could be because in AW there was more tournaments than ever existed in life and anything.
There were so many.
So there was more. They were definitely dominant that game. So don't let me take that away from them. It's just there were so many tournaments that, they lost a couple more. Complexity and Black Ops 2 was just like they were rolling through everyone. You know what I mean? So that's.
I mean, it goes to show you how long or how far back we have to go. Like, this FaZe team they are the new era Complexity or OpTic Dynasty esque team, if you want to call it that, where you are just confident that no matter how good or bad they're playing, they will be in the finals.
They'll figure it out.
Yeah, not too shabby of a position to be in, having everyone just assume you're gonna be in the grand finals.
You just roll out of bed. Oh yeah, we'll be in the finals. Don't worry about it, guys.
Yeah, no worries about it. But all right, guys, those are our power rankings. As always, please leave in the comments what you liked, what you didn't like, what your power rankings would look like. We love to kind of compare and contrast how all of these teams are falling into place. Enable Pacman, thank you as always for whipping those up for us, guys. And we'll see how those shift at all. Maybe, hopefully, some more shifts going into week 2, but we'll have to wait and see for that.